what we had done previously was create an index.js and create a taskbar.js. In taskbar.js, we had a function component called taskbar that was returning an input dialog box. This component was exported or exposed, and this component was imported into index.js as taskbar, allowing us to render taskbar within the component over here. And this was our main component. It was called our app. This component was rendered out onto the HTML page to the ID root. Now, initially starting off with, I had header tags over here. I converted that into a component as well. Again, it's a simple function returning header tags. Really, the reason we are working with these ideas of components is so that if you want to further then complicate these components, make them a little bit more sophisticated, we can do that. Also, we can start reusing these components as and when we see fit. So these what you've seen so far is functions as components. React has another option of, instead of working with functions as components, one can work with class-based components. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to convert this function-based component into a class-based component. To do that, what I'm going to do, start off by doing, is comment the component out. Now, you're going to see there's going to be a problem because this has failed to compile because we can't expose this function called taskbar. So to start off with, a class-based component starts off very simply class, and this class is called taskbar. Within this class, you can have attributes, you can have properties, you can have methods within or functions within this class. And so really what we're trying to do is we're trying to build this class up. Okay, now the first thing we want to do within this class is we want to have a function called render. Render allows us to actually kind of display the work that we do within this function, or display the kind of content, the HTML or the JSX that we write within this function. And so the render function, in this case, what we want to do is we want to have an input box. And so I'm going to have a div over here, and within this div, I'm going to have an input box. Now, there are lots of errors that you see when you try to see how this works, and we are certainly going to try to reduce the number of errors that we see over here. Okay, now one thing we need to do when we are working with class-based components is we need to use an ability within React, the React library, or a specific React component, the idea that we can write class-based components. And so, like a regular Java class, we actually need to extend some built-in functionality that's present in React. And so we need to extend the React.component class that is actually present within React. Oops, it's extends, not extend, right? And so we need to actually build on the React library, and we need to build on component, which is a specific set of functions that are exposed by the component class within the React library. Now, it says over here, your render method should have a return statement. And so one of the things that we need to do is within this function, as you can see, I'm missing something over here. I need to return this set of divs over here. Okay, now one of the things that we're going to have to do is start paying attention to these error messages. Again, I was missing a return in the render statement. Again, I'm returning from this render method the set of input, an input box, right? Again, giving me the same thing that I saw over here. Now, we can convert also the header class into the header.js into a class-based component. So again, one can comment that out, create a class header that extends component. Now, one can also specify just regular component over here, but if you specify regularly component over here, you've actually got to indicate to React that you are going to refer, when you are referring to component, you're referring to React.component. So you will specify over here component, right? And so you don't actually have to type in class header extends React.component. You can just specify component, but if you specify just component over here, you've got to say that you want to import React and you want to import the component element of the React library. And again, you want to have a render function in here, or a render method in here, and within this method you want to return because of the method. There we go. And so all we've done is convert our code from function-based components to class-based components. Right, we have class-based components in here. Again, index.js does not change because I was working with header and taskbar. I've converted them both from function-based components to class-based components. They're both exposed as header and taskbar, and they're coming in as header and taskbar. Okay, now why might one want to move to this idea of a class-based component? One of the ideas behind a class-based component is that they allow us to move data. Classes have properties, classes have attributes, classes can have other methods. And so what that allows us to do is to kind of modularize and compartmentalize code, right? And so one can actually build very sophisticated classes over here that we can work with. So in this case, for instance, I have a search bar over here, or sorry, a task bar over here. Within this taskbar, I can do certain things, right? I can set maybe the value of what I want to be displayed in here, right? Maybe I want to have something like type in a task, right? Maybe I want like that kind of text that's present in here, and we can do that by setting these things known as properties of a class. Right? And so just like any other class, I can specify that this class actually has a constructor, and this constructor has certain properties. We're going to learn more about these properties as we go along. Now, because it's a class, and just like a Java constructor, the constructor in React actually has to call the superclasses constructor. And so I'm going to say super and pass it the properties that this receives. And within this, I can specify that there is in fact a state for this class, for the objects. This is a taskbar object that is built from this component. And this taskbar object actually has a state that I can actually modify, right? And so the state is a property of this object, and I want to set the property of this object. In fact, I want to set one of its terms, right? And the term I want to set this to is maybe, enter a task, for instance. Now, the issue over here is that this is not showing up yet, right? And so I want to show this term, this property of the current object as part of this input tag. And the way I would do that is I would say that this actually has a specific value. This input tag has a specific value, right? And the value of this is the current object's term property. And if I specify this like this, I get something like enter a task right in there. Now, I can do it very simply like this, allowing me to set the state of an object, right? This is very simply an introduction to this idea of state that allows us to propagate state from one component to another component. As you can see, we're still within index.js over here, but we are working with the taskbar, and its state is propagated from taskbar all the way up to index, right? And so we can then work with this information over here that's present in the app as state properties. One of the things that you might think about doing is how might you convert index that is currently a functional component into a class-based component.